What's happening, Fight Week Show fans? Thank you very much for joining us today. Today, we have the one and only John Gooden on the Fight Week Show. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much. I appreciate the one and only call as well. Yes, I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but pleasure to be with you.
No. Thank you so much for joining us, man. I really appreciate your time and being in your presence for some of the stuff that you've done for the MMA community is a privilege. So thank you very much for giving us your time. You're a presenter, a commentator, writer, producer, even a qualified electrician and inspector. So you've done a lot. You've done a lot there. You did an interview, inside the octagon, with Dan Hardy, for many years. Tell us about that relationship that you have with him and the ability to bounce off of each other while illustrating, what you're displaying to the MMA audience.
Oh, you're giving me kind of all sorts of nostalgia now, because of course that's not a show that we're currently doing, which is a great shame. I took a lot of pride in helping build that show with Dan. It was an entirely new format for the UFC. I think it was, for those in the UK, it was like a Monday Night Football deal where you have quite a technical illustrator and mind, if you like, and then you have someone like me just trying to guide some questions to open up kind of the best kind of variables around what we were looking to analyze. And as a martial artist, it was fascinating working with Dan, who's got such a great mind for the sport. And it's not just a great mind, because I think there are lots of other, his ability to tell us it through his unique use of language, which is what I think makes him really stand out. There are great coaches around the world, but I think Dan has both that great coaching ability, but also that really unique ability to communicate an idea in an entertaining way that works for television. Wow. And I'd like to think that through our relationship that we developed over many years, many goes at that show, we were listening to what the fans liked and what we thought they needed. And I think we were on the money with that. Yeah. So yeah, we were able to leverage a genuine friendship, and I'd like to think I'm quite light-hearted. I bring that kind of lower level, like martial artist mindset to ask the sorts of questions from the sensei, crew, coach type figure, and we had a good thing going on there. And it's a real shame that it's no longer in our hands, but I believe they're doing a job with it over in Vegas now. So at least the fans are getting, different thoughts and different people bringing their views to what is ultimately a wonderful sport with so many different variables which we could all learn from.
100%. I mean, when that show got taken from us, I remember feeling so sad about it, and I could speak for a lot of MMA fans, across the UK, across the world that will tune in just to get yours and Dan's opinion and the way that you saw the sport and broke down the nuances. It's the nuances that we don't understand that you guys break down that made that show so special. Hopefully, like you said, they're working on something over there in Vegas, and we might be looking to have it back in some way real soon. So thank you for all those moments that that you gave us all those years, man. We really appreciate it. A lot of people don't understand the grind that you've had to go through to get to where you are. And I personally want to give you your flowers right now. Back from 2009 to 2014, you worked on various regional promotions like Shock and Awe, Model Fight, Kayo, Cage Warriors, sometimes even Sky Sports and Sentanta Sports. And that journey, it couldn't have been an easy journey. How has that helped you forge the person and the presenter and the commentator that you are today, and how has it helped you in doing what you currently do?
Yeah, I look back on all of those memories with fondness. I've got a terrible memory, however, and you bringing up those things now just seems like you're almost talking about someone else. But the truth is, I'm not someone who was in broadcasting full time, didn't have a radio show, wasn't on the TV, and then I've crashed the party. Like if you're an MMA fan, I'm your guy. Like if you're part of the MMA community, I'm exactly like you are. Like I was training, I still with the same coach. I started with a guy called Mark Chen, who was a student of Jess Loudon. Went to a couple of jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai classes before I found mixed martial arts. That was always the intention. And I've been with David Lee now since about, I can't even remember now, like 2008, 2009. I was training last night with him. You know, we're as good friends as much as I respect him as a fantastic coach and martial artist. So I've been on my own martial arts journey, and I just didn't think that it was very well represented here in the UK, truth be told, even around the world. But, you know, this was our market, and these are the conversations that we have in the pub, you know, around the barbecue, and people just don't really get what we do. And when we're passionate about something, you know, we get on our high horse and we bang the drum pretty loud. and I did, despite what I just said, I kind of really wanted to do the TV thing when I was younger. I felt like I had a way of delivering information that I thought could be informative, entertaining, if you like. And there were, you know, I'm lucky that I have quite a neutral accent and a few other things going for me. So it became the platform which allowed me to explore broadcasting, which was an area of interest that I'd given up on when I was in my early 20s, truth be told, but also indulge in this passion and really highlight a community that I was very proud to be a part of. But I wasn't 25 years old when I was doing this. You know, I was in my 30s at this point. You know, I was trying for a family. I have a wife, I had a house, a mortgage, I had bills to pay. So I was doing 3 jobs sometimes, you know, to try and make things work. And I honestly didn't think that it was ever going to become a full-time gig until it pretty much did. Like, I think maybe the year before I enjoyed it so much. I used to get frustrated with the job that I had, and I wasn't enjoying that so much. I was like, oh, why can't I, you know, do the TV thing? You know, I realized that MMA probably wasn't there for a full-time gig, but I quite liked the life of traveling around and meeting new people and, you know, the energy of a broadcast. And I really did enjoy that. And I was getting frustrated that wasn't my life. It was just that I was a hobbyist. But then people would say, you know, that I had some ability there, but I was, you know, never really getting noticed. So when things finally shook out, and timing's everything, people, you know, you've got to be in the right place at the right time. You've got to be working hard. You've got to be noticed. And when the UFC came to expand internationally, I think I was one of the few people in the kind of broadcasting position that was just there a lot. And I was able to get in front of people to screen test, and here we are. But it was tough. I had my best friend, Willie B. I remember having a conversation with him one time. I said, look, I think I'm done. It was causing me a lot of problems at home, a lot of stress. My eye was coming off the ball, off of the business, a family business that I was involved in. And yeah, I've kind of been one of those people where if I go after something, I normally get it. I mean, I've always had to work hard for everything that I've gotten, but I've got there in the end. And it didn't seem like it was happening. And that frustrated me. So with that became, you know, it affects other parts of your life. So I'm glad it did finally come through. And now I just have other things to kind of moan about, if you like, in the journey. But, you know, it's fantastic to finally be here. And one day I've got more work to do, but I'd like to be able to help others achieve similar transitions, because I feel like I've done it the hard way, but I'm pleased I did, because there's not a lot that you can throw at me now that I've not encountered on my journey. The other thing I'd like to say is, because I get a lot of people reaching out to me about, you know, what they should do with their own journey, and everyone in this day and age, and a lot through time, people look to take the shortest possible route for the greatest possible reward. Yeah. But actually, it doesn't always pay off. Yeah. And the fact that I was doing local shows in Watford, amateur, and then, you know, learning how to research, been giving no material, you know, it's all on you, just a microphone, and you got to fill that time. That's actually very, very difficult to do early on, but you know, maybe the stakes aren't so high. There's not so many people listening, so you can make your mistakes. It's important to be able to make your mistakes and be able to refine your craft without having so much pressure on you that, you know, you don't cut the mustard and therefore get the gig the next time, and you rely on that to put food on the table. So I just encourage people to work out of their community, whichever sport it might be, whatever line of work it is. You need an apprenticeship in whatever you do, and you gradually build. You gradually build, and you start taking a step. And the biggest step I took, truth be told, was Cage Warriors to UFC. It was like night and day. But there wasn't many more. There were no other steps I could have really taken in between. So it was what I had to do, and in the end, you know, I think I scaled a bit of a mountain to be in the position I am now, and I'm grateful that the UFC allowed me that kind of freedom, and probably subpar performances in the early days to get to where I am. But you know, another thing is the passion, and I know that people recognize that out of me. I'm not faking this. Like, I love this shit. Like, this is
I know you live this shit.
Yeah, this is what I live and breathe for. So I wouldn't recommend people just going into any old sport, any old line of work. It's so much easier when you are like deeply connected to something, and you see it, and you see the changes and the course of time, and you're like, we're on the right track, and I'm going to continue to do the, you know, the work that I can to make a positive impression.
I mean, it just sounds like you're talking about what we're going through as, you know, as an entity. And thank you so much for that advice. And I'm sure the people listening as well would appreciate that advice that you've just given us. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. You currently work on UFC Fight Pass as a content partner, you know, working with the likes of Laura Sanko, Daniel Cormier, Marco Bisping, Felder, among others. Please tell us the dynamics of such strong personalities that blend so well. Because when I look at you lot, you look like a whole family and just having a great time. Please tell us about that dynamics there.
Well, I mean, we're bonded by a love for mixed martial arts and this community. They are strong personalities. It's funny you should say that, because, you know, I'm the guy, I've got to try and get the best out of those, so that there's always that dynamic. But at the same time, when you're the lead commentator, you can't necessarily be a wallflower. You can't let these big guys run over you. Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, you've got to be a bit careful, because they are the alpha males, and with one swipe of the hand, they'll, you know, you're out of there. But there's obviously there are some people that I've spent more time with and have developed a closer, deeper connection with. Paul Felder, like Dan Hardy, obviously. Laura Sanko is someone who I feel we've been on similar kinds of journeys as well. So. She's, you know, Laura's becoming a really good friend of mine and a really good ally in this world of broadcasting, particularly within our sports. Bisping's just done he's been there and done it, right? So I have just an incredible amount of respect for him. But he's also such a big personality that it's easy to get lost in the broadcast when you're sat next to him. So I'm still trying to find the right balance so that he feels like he's being heard. I feel like I'm ticking off all of the bits that I need to do in a play-by-play role as well. So yeah, it just takes time, and you have to invest in these things. It's a relationship, and when you're on the mic for so long, it's you just have to do your very best, and that's particularly my job as well when you're leading the dance, because you're setting these guys up. You want to get them to bring out the best stuff. I don't want them to come out with the surface level stuff. I can do that. I want to bring the real good stuff, the inside the octagon type stuff out of these analysts. And that's, you know, it's a work in progress when you have the personalities in there, and you've got to find out what they're best at, what they know particularly well. Don't challenge them in the areas that they probably don't know so much about, particularly like storylines with fighters, some fighters in certain parts of the world. So it's just finding that balance, and you get there. You know, you just got to keep working at it, like any relationship.
You're a big part of the Fight Pass, like we just said. How have you found this year's Dana White Contender Series with, you know, the signing talents like Sam Patterson, Cameron Saaiman, who we've had on this show before they even went on Dana White Contender Show, and even Bo Nichols. This is a two-part question as well. And what did you think of the whole, you know, Bo Nichols fighting twice to get a contract? Please.
Yeah. So I'm not really involved too much with Contender Series because I don't get to work stateside. But of course, I keep my finger on the pulse there. I try I think recently I realized that I think my efforts are best placed really trying to be a mouthpiece and a conduit for European mixed martial arts. You know, that's where I'm at. That's I'm around those coaches quite a bit. So I'm always trying to and it's not a sign of favoritism. It's just what's more easily available to me. And the guys stateside have that taken care of very, very well. But I feel like we're a bit light with getting these storylines out, and Fight Passes. I'm so grateful they've given me a platform for my show, like Eurowatch, which I'll be doing in a few hours actually for this weekend's fights, and then I've got my Octagon Side podcast as well. But going back to your point, that the Contender Series. So I now have a first-hand experience of just how nerve-wracking that is, and I wasn't even fighting. So you mentioned Sam Patterson. He's a good friend of mine, a teammate. And I was over in Vegas going through all of the steps with him, getting ready to partake in the world's toughest job interview. And when I was sat there, everything came back to me. But being on that journey with like before the UFC, because I've been so involved with the UFC, I feel disconnected sometimes from that. Being in the gym, obviously, you know, I still see the struggles and things, but it is a struggle. These guys and girls, what they put themselves through athletically, but then what they're sacrificing on the daily compared to what some of us others are enjoying, just down to food choice. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sam still lives at home with his folks. He's engaged to a beautiful young artist, you know, and she's very supportive of his career. So I've even said secretly to Sam, I know she's a wonderful young woman. I know her only a little bit, but like, keep hold of her, Sam, because not everyone will understand this journey, and that goes for all athletes. You know, your parents sometimes don't even get it, and you're fighting against the stream of society. You are going against the stream, and that is hard to do. You're not doing a 9 to 5. Do you know what I mean? Anyone that breaks away from that in whatever capacity will find it tough. And then you get punched in the face. And they get new opportunities to express themselves. And then then you take that up a notch with a Contender Series. You have now got your fingertips on the UFC, right? You're now seeing what it can be like to be a UFC fighter with the PI and these people taking great care of you, and people that you've seen on the TV showing you interest. You know, that's nice, isn't it? But that might not be your future if you don't get past this fighter in an impressive way. And that for me was what really cut through. I was like, holy shit, he might win tonight, but he still might be going back to his home without a contract, looking around going, what do I do now? How long is it going to be before I get this shot again? Can I sustain this kind of lifestyle and the sacrifices to get there? And in that moment, I just couldn't help but feel all of that for him. And then he got like wobbled in the first round, and then he came back, and maybe the drama actually helped him.
I think it did.
And he gets the win. Sam's very good at doing that. Like I mean, I grapple with him more than MMA. I don't really do MMA anymore. You know, it's far too old for that. But he, you know, even if not that I ever put him in bad positions, but when I've seen him in bad positions, he will find a way to then counter, and then you give him a little opening and he'll take it, whether that's standing on the ground. So I'm so proud of him and so happy for him. And the Contender Series is dramatic in that sense, and they do a good job of getting that across. Bo Nickel was there, saw him, very cool character, and you know, he's already calling out the big names. Like, this sport moves on so fast.
Yeah,
I don't always like that, truth be told, but it does, and that's not just this sport, by the way. That's a reflection of society.
Yeah,
we're always looking for the next star. We're always looking for the next star, next star, next star. Who, while Khamzat's injured, not saying it, but if Khamzat's away for a while, who's the next guy? Aljamain Sterling said he's not coming back till the summer. You know, we need more people to fill that spot. You know, you've got guys like Bo Nickel that can do that now, and there are more coming through. So I'm thankful for it. I'm thankful for people, you know, leaving one career to come over to mixed martial arts, bringing in their audience as well, and opening up and allowing us to hear their story, and then expressing themselves in a physical way too. So it's exciting stuff.
Brilliant, brilliant. We were so proud of Sam Patterson getting his hand raised and, you know, securing that UFC contract, because we knew how much it put into it. You know, I followed the whole journey. You know, you helping him train. With shout out to Team Crossface. You know, fantastic team, fantastic people.
Yeah, Team, where are we? Yeah, there's the Team Crossface stuff here. I get,
yeah, shout out to them. We saw the work that you guys did, and you know, it was fantastic to see him get his hand raised and get that contract. And big up to Sam Patterson. Let's talk UFC 280 real quick. You were part of the build-up. I saw the build-up. You were part of the build-up. The build-up looked incredible. What was it like, you know, the hospitality and the atmosphere when it gets to fight night? Like, seeing all those people there. What was that like? What was that experience
it was like? I've been a part of some big shows now, and like, we're being in Fight Island as well, but that was obviously without fans. But you've got the big name fighters and their teams kicking around. But this was a little bit different. You know, I felt, I've got to be honest with you, it wasn't a great week for me. I had so many different things to do. I was so busy, and I'd had some stuff go on just before that week, which meant that I was behind on my preparation. So I wasn't able to enjoy it. But what I can tell you is it was hectic. You know, there was a lot going on, and even down to like the little bantamweight tournament that they had, and the guys would like bump into one another in the hallways of the hotel, and then you've got like Marab and Aljamain together, and all of a sudden everyone's cutting weight, and people's tempers are probably a little bit flared, and
cranky.
And now Peter Yan's in that mix, and they're talking, and then it was just like, oh shit, is something going to go down now? And, you know, so the anxiety around it was building. The lobby of the hotel was always full. And Charles Oliveira had like a 30-man crew, all with blonde hair.
Yeah.
Then what was even more confusing was that the guys on the Road to UFC tournament, which is what I was commentating on Sunday, all the Chinese fighters, as a little tip of their cap to Charles Oliveira, they all blonde, they bleached their hair as well. And then you had like the Chinese contingent and the Brazilian contingent, they were all with blonde hair, which I thought was very funny. Excuse me. Then obviously with the Nurmagomedov team, Makhachev's team, that's a part of the world where, you know, they are celebrated so heavily, and you'd get a lot of visitors into the hotel. It's a very busy hotel. So it was awesome to see that, and to see just the outpouring of support. A fighter couldn't get through the lobby without, you know, just going through a gauntlet of signings and photos and stuff. I'm sure they loved that. So there was a lot going on. It felt like 2019 again. You know, we're back to business. Fans can enjoy everything, and you know, love it. Love seeing it.
Brilliant, brilliant. I still haven't got over the main event. The main event is still, I mean, the way Islam dismissed of Do Bronx, the way he did it. You know, how impressed were you watching that? And you know, did you think it'd be that easy?
It's very difficult when you sit down and you speak to these guys as well, and you listen. Everyone's obviously talking about the fights, particularly the title fights. Lots of respected opinions. I went into that thing. I've just got this thing about that Dagestani wrestling style, particularly the guys at the very top of their craft, like Khabib and Islam. And you just look at that and go, I just don't know how you beat it until I see someone do it. I'm just gonna have my mind go, I just don't see it being beaten. But then you sit there and you look at Charles and what he's been through, his career, his skill set, his finishing ability, risk taking, then the risk taking. Actually, can you afford to take risks with someone like Islam, who's just so consistently good in all ranges? Make one mistake, probably going to burn 2 minutes on the clock trying to get up from Islam being on top of you. And so I think deep down, I felt like he was probably going to win. I don't have a favorite, but I've enjoyed the resurgence of Charles Oliveira and his career and what it stands for. I'm more of a jiu-jitsu guy than I am a combat sambo guy, although I'd love to spend more time learning that art. So I couldn't help. My heart was like, oh, this is going to be a very competitive fight, and can we see Charles Oliveira pull something out really dramatic? But the betting lines, well, I just, as it was, I'm like, I wasn't. In the end, I don't think I was surprised. I just think he's that damn good. Islam is a beast, and his reign at 155 is gonna go for a long time. Maybe. I do like the Volkanovski fight. I think if that happens, he's again. Volkanovski's got that kind of style.
He's so tough. He's a tough guy. Never seen anyone get out of T-City the way he did. And he didn't just get out, he put the beats. He put some beating on Brian once he got out of that submission there. A submission attempt.
It's just everything. He's got all of the elements, everything that you need to put a great challenge and maybe even overcome someone like Islam Makhachev. So I'm excited if they make that fight. People might be hating on that because of the whole connotations for featherweight, but I think it could work. I was speaking with Volkanovski. He was an absolute legend fight week, by the way. He was my MVP for the fight week build-up because he was so willing to do things. Little behind the scenes for you here. So I have to do the pre-fight interviews, right? Wow. So where they're sat down in a chair, they talk slightly off camera. They got the orange globes in the back or whatever. And I said, tonight I'm going to go knock him out in the first round or whatever it might be.
Right.
Before they walk out. So I'm the guy who was asking those questions. But because Volkanovski was the backup fighter, I had to ask him as if he was fighting Islam. And then I had to interview him again as if he was fighting Charles. Right. And most people would be... rightly so, they'd be a bit like, oh, this is a bit of a drag. Do you know what I mean? And it also messes with your head a little bit.
Yep.
But no, he's like, this sounds like fun. You're going to see how good an actor I am because I'm going to make you feel like I'm actually fighting both of these guys, in a day or so. And he was just such a pleasure to work with. And he's a
fantastic.
And everyone wants his attention. He couldn't be easier to work with. And his answers, his delivery was brilliant. I'm a big fan of him as a fighter and who he is as a champion as well and a person. So I just wanted to shout out Volkanovski there. And
big up to Volkanovski.
You make my job easy as well, and everyone around me felt that. So it was it was very impressive.
Wicked. I mean, we're so close, running out of time. So sorry about the time, and I got a couple more questions to ask you. We got some fun questions in, and I just wanted to ask you. This is from Naz B. Big up to Naz for putting in the question. He asked, do you think amateur MMA should be like an Olympic sport, should be part of the Olympic sports by now?
Probably not by now. I like the idea, as long as we don't dilute the rule set so very much. And so we've seen over time things like judo, for example. They've really changed judo for the Olympics, and I don't know if the judokas of old would necessarily think it was always for a good thing. So if you have, I like what the IMAF system is right now. Right. I think it's very technical. Yes, they're wearing pads and things, but you still see all the elements of mixed martial arts. If you start taking things out, then I think it's going to really take away from the purity of the sport. Gotcha. But I would like to see it. I would like to see it in something like the Olympics, because it just means that the sport will do better for longer and it gives more options. Some people don't necessarily want to go on and make a career as a professional fighter, but they might go through the Olympic program and have great success there and become a great coach and give their time into the sport another way. So I think that the IMAF organization is doing a really good job with setting up a foundation and infrastructure upon which we can build a solid sport, because I still feel like organizations like the UFC have to underpin the sport. Not a lot of people realize this, but the UFC do an incredible job of trying to keep things like underpinned and keep growing underneath them to support the top end. And that is very unique. Everything else is grassroots. They call it grassroots for a reason. I don't actually see that historically MMA has been that way. So IMAF are trying to now slot in and do that. So if it looks like that, I'm all for it. If it waters it down, it takes away some of the purity of the fight for me. So I don't know if I'd be on board.
Right. Thank you very much for that one. The other question, we've got one other question from Dante. Salute to Dante for the question. He says, what's your favorite finish to a fight?
Favorite finish. Something, yeah. Oh, see, I'm a bit, because I like all aspects. I think if you see, okay, some of the more dynamic weapons, I think I saw Matt Brown repost his brutal crushing elbow. Like that kind of finish. Then I was obviously on the call for the Joaquin Buckley, crazy kick. When you see things like that, like little superhuman stuff, like real life ninja stuff, I love that. But I also really enjoy a very complex groundwork sequence, which then leads to like a very prestigious submission. So, you know, I'm open, but rather than like a nice 1-2, as much as lovely as that can be, we all really like to see something that we don't often see very much. And that's something, something that takes something special for that finish. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that little sort of baiting.
Exactly.
And the last question from Carl Rossi, big up to Carl Rossi, is a big Khamzat fan. And you made a reference to Khamzat earlier on. You said a few months back we saw you grapple with Khamzat Chimaev. What was that experience like?
Awful.
And and giving your gym experience some credit and that. What was it like speaking to Alexander Volkanovski, getting his take on Khamzat Chimaev? What was all that experience like? Thank you, Carl Rossi, for the question.
I really enjoyed it. Right, this is, some people might think it's a weird thing to say, but if you're a martial artist, it's like, I see that wonderful shirt you're wearing. If I got invited to go and have a kickabout with the boys at Arsenal, like, I'm going to do it. Right, just because it's MMA, like MMA is the world that I enjoy. So if you say, let's get on the mat with someone and, you know, do some rounds with them, I'm like, I can't offer you much, but I mean, I'm only going to learn from this experience. So but then other things come into it. So I'm not a complete novice, but then you know what Khamzat's like. And I go into it knowing I've got very little to offer him, right? I'm not in there to win. I'm not in there to get I mean, like, yes, I'm going to try for a submit. I'm under no illusion that it's going to be a bad round for me. But then the way you enter that, and people that grapple know this, like, you touch you go. But if you go in like super hard and you start trying to like go super aggressive, then as the guy who's naturally worse, then the guy who's better, if he doesn't like, I'm also in his room, I'm on his mat. If I approach it with that energy, then he's like, oh, you want to do that? Fine, I can do that. And all of a sudden he puts it on you even harder. But what was quite funny for me was I kind of went in a bit gently, like, oh, I'm just going to go in a little, and all of a sudden arm dragged in, like I'm in a bad spot. I'm like, oh, well, I shouldn't do that again. And I even said that to him last, like when we were doing the round, like I kept getting arm dragged somewhere from Leap because I was going in a bit too, it was just a bit too timid. And but what I would say is, I'm often put in a lot of bad positions. I've been around a long time, and I'm quite defensive in the end. But I can get out of stuff. You know, I'm okay at getting out of things. I can survive a little bit. I couldn't survive against it. I mean, things that I would do against black belts, which would just give me a little bit more time. Just a little few more seconds. They might not get me with that one. They've probably already got something lined up.
Just delaying the inevitable.
Exactly that. But I couldn't even get out of the first one with Khamzat. Like everything, he's so strong, and his execution of stuff was so very tight that I was like, holy shit! Like this is horrible. And he was getting me with some champagne submissions as well. You know, he's like. Yeah, he got. I think I don't know if he got me the banana split, but he's like calf slicer, biceps. He was doing some horrible, gnarly stuff. The horrible man, but I enjoyed it. And then going around the room and seeing how he affects that whole room. I was speaking with Volkan Özdemir recently. And he's in there. He's a light heavyweight guy. He's got Alexander Gustafsson on the mat. You know, who's done everything in the sport bar, get a belt in his waist. And as much as he enjoys working with him, he was mentioning the work ethic of Khamzat, and you can't help but, as your ego, you know, you're like, I'm a top level fighter too. If he's doing it, I'm doing it. And I'm not used to doing what he's doing. He's coming out of it going, Jesus, that guy can work hard. So that just gives you an idea of he is obviously the real deal, but he works for it. And that's why he's able to strut his stuff the way that he does.
Fantastic. Very last thing, you made a reference. You're an Arsenal fan.
Yes.
We checked. Let's talk about Arsenal. Before we get you out of here, let's talk about Arsenal. What have you made of Arteta and, you know, what he's doing this season? And how disappointed was you with how we finished last season? And did you expect to be where we are right now doing what we're doing?
The first answer, I didn't expect the season to go as well as it did now. I think that Premier League football managers have one of the toughest gigs in the world, you know, in terms of your sustainability. Your longevity in the game is often very short. I mean, heart surgeons and brain surgeons have important work, and you know, but let's put that aside a little bit. We know that if you make a couple of false moves in 6 months, you're out of a job. Like, and it's a very public sort of fall from grace, right? So I'm very proud that typically Arsenal are a club that do give managers a good go. I look at Arsene Wenger. I know he had a few in between, but I did like Arteta when he came in, not just because I obviously knew of him as a player, but I liked a lot of the things that he was saying and how he seemed to have the dressing room. And when I watched the All or Nothing series, which I implore anyone to go and watch that. Not just the Arsenal one, but there's others out there. But it gives you a good idea of the sport in a sport which we don't often get to hear from people really, and it's very muted by media people in between, like the PR machine. And so we got quite a raw look, and I loved what I was seeing and hearing from Arteta. I thought it was fascinating. So that made me love him a bit more. And when we kind of fell apart, was it Newcastle? I can't. It was like the last 4 games.
Newcastle, Southampton.
And I'm like, it was there. Like, what the hell happened? But the passion from the manager, and then obviously he spent a lot of money. Let's be honest. But I think he's doing the right things for that team. He's got the youngest team. He's got the youngest team in the Premier League, and we're still managing to hold top spot. You know, historically, we've not done well after Christmas, and then we have to rally back. But he's changing things up a little bit. The way that we trend throughout the season seems to be a little bit different now. So I like what I see. I've been to the Emirates quite a bit this season, so I'm a season ticket holder. And it's wonderful down there. You know, it's easy to support a team when they're doing well. I get that. But Arsenal fans have had a bit of a bit of grief over the years for not being behind their team as much as a big corporate element down at the Emirates. But it's been so great, and I'm enjoying my conversations with my Chelsea friends, my friends in Liverpool. You know, it's it's good. And Paddy and I had we were talking to one another at the Liverpool game. Bless him. So and to be fair, like I thought Paddy was going to give me hell after because I wasn't being a dick when I messaged him. But Paddy knows his football, man. I know, obviously, but he's not. I don't think he's actually an idiot with it. So I will enjoy engaging with him about football matters.
Thank you so much.